What's up, everyone? Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. So, we've got a 9-game Bundesliga slate tomorrow on DraftKings. I think this has the potential to be one of the most entertaining soccer slates we have for the entire season. Just a really good sweat when you have 9 matches going on simultaneously. It's the Bundesliga 2, which is the highest scoring league of the top 5 leagues. So there should be just goals left and right here. This is the final match day of the season. Some teams have something to play for, others don't. So it should be a really fun slate to play. Let's go ahead and jump right in. These are kind of my team level projections as usual. The only thing that's different this week is I didn't use expected goals just because I think things are a little different since not every team has something to play for. So these are the implied goal totals just from the sports book, just to give us an idea of what is expected. In addition, I have put some highlights on teams here based on what's going on. So the teams in green have something that they absolutely have to play for. Most of them it's a win, but others it's just a draw. So Leverkusen is playing for a Champions League spot. Bremen and Dusseldorf are trying to avoid relegation. And then Hoffenheim and Wolfsburg, although they are both going to make it into the Europa League, they're playing for the final qualification spot, whereas the other team is going to go into a playoff to get there. And then Gladbach is also playing for a Champions League spot here, but I put them in red because I believe they only need a draw. So it could be a game where they actually end up playing kind of conservatively and trying not to lose the game. So that does concern me a little bit, even though they do have something on the line here. Leverkusen's a must-win, and even if they win, that might not get them by Gladbach. I think Gladbach would need to lose that game. So Leverkusen's going to be going all out here. Gladbach can play it a little more conservatively. Red Bull, Leipzig, and Bayern, they both are locked into the Champions League. And I have them in red because they do have the Champions League. So you could see them rotate or, pull guys early because they don't want to get anyone injured before their Champions League run. And then Dortmund is already out of the Champions League, but their place is locked in for next year. So they're kind of a wild card. And then these other teams in white just don't have anything specific to play for. And then I've sorted it by expected DK points based on all of the categories up here, just to give us an idea of which teams might be best to target. So Frankfurt tops the list, and then Leverkusen is right there. All of these strong teams, Red Bull, Bayern, Dortmund, Gladbach, they're all up here. But again, the concern with these teams is we don't know what's going to happen with lineups. We don't know how long guys are going to play for. So just something to keep in mind for cash games. Another thing I like to do is take a look at the implied goal scoring odds for the players on the slate. And then I will take their salary and divide it by the implied scoring odds to get a value metric. So the lower the number, the better here. This is not like a projection, but the better value score they have, essentially the lower amount of salary you're paying per implied percentage point of implied scoring odds. So it's just basically where you can get cheap potential upside. So in terms of the guys up here that we could see start, Nils Peterson for Freiburg, 50% implied scoring odds, only 5,200. Bas Dost for Frankfurt, who should start. He's got 63% implied scoring odds, which is near the top of the list, yet he's only 7,100. If Ilario starts for Leverkusen, similar situation. And then this is player X that I alluded to on Twitter if you saw my post earlier. But Hinteregger, a center back for Frankfurt, has ridiculous implied scoring odds at over 30%. For only 3,800. I think that's a little steep for a center back. I mean, the implied scoring odds, but Frankfurt's opponent, Paderborn, are terrible, and they have allowed something like 12 or 13 set-piece goals on the year. So they're really susceptible there, and that's where Hinteregger excels. So, if there was a $3,800 forward on this slate playing for the biggest favorite or one of the biggest favorites that had 30% implied scoring odds, you probably wouldn't think twice about playing him. So because he's defender eligible, you're going to get clean sheet potential too. So I think he's a fine play, especially in tournaments, but everybody loves that center back with the high scoring odds. So he could have a lot of ownership, something to keep in mind. Timo Werner, as far as like a high-end forward option, he's got one of the best value metrics here. The concern with Werner is that he's going to transfer to Chelsea, so I don't know what kind of minutes he's going to get in this game, but he's not going to play in the Champions League, so this is effectively his last game for Red Bull. So I do think he starts, and I think he will want to perform well for the fans there, unless he just doesn't give a shit, but that's my assumption anyway. So, Werner, a good value for his implied scoring odds. Traore, if he started for Gladbach, would be very interesting. There's Andre Silva, 65% implied scoring odds. But you could get Bastos for much cheaper, although Silva is more likely to score, in my opinion, and does take penalties. And then Havertz, a good play from Leverkusen, given his implied scoring odds. And finally, Thorgan Hazard is always overpriced, but at 6,800 in a game where Sancho might not start because he's a guy that's probably transferring away. Hazard, 50% implied scoring odds and could have set pieces for Dortmund. So I do think he is very interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and run through the teams. Let's just start with we'll just go through a few of these teams that, I think are good ones to target on the slate. So the first one would be Frankfurt. There we are. So there's your forwards. I like Silva and Dost, but Dost is very interesting because of the price discount. Kostic, just an unbelievable play. High floor, crosses a ton. Even as the second most expensive player in the slate, don't mind Kostic at all because you're just getting that safety of his floor. And as I mentioned, Paderborn weak on set pieces. It's likely that Kostic is the guy taking those set pieces. So you want to pair him with Hinteregger. Not a bad idea at all. Kamada was suspended. He's coming back in, 7K, really talented attacking player. I like him there. Most of the predicted lineups have Danny DaCosta as a wingback. I like him at 4,900 for sure. If Gacinovic, whatever his name is, if he starts at 3,600, it will likely be in an attacking role. So that's a nice value there. If DaCosta does not start, that probably means that Torre's there. He's a really solid play at 4,600, a little bit cheaper. Evan Ndicka, he's probably going to be playing as part of the back three, so not that intriguing. But if he starts out wide, not a bad play for the biggest favorite at 3,100, even though he does not cross a ton. And there's my boy Hinteregger at 3,800. All right, let's talk about Leverkusen next. So Leverkusen, must-win game for them. 8,100, Diaby's been really solid from a floor perspective, and he plays in an attacking role, so he can also get you a goal. He is a nice play. Vollen could start at 8,300, but if Alario starts at 7K, he's a nice value based on his implied scoring odds. Love Kai Havertz at 8,800, their most talented player, the one you would most expect to get a goal in this game. And then Wendell, Weiser, if these guys start out wide, not bad options to consider as well. Hold on. I need to go back to the midfield. Yeah, so if Demir Bay starts at 8K, he should be taking most of the set pieces. And again, in a game where this is a must-win, he could just be firing in a million crosses and corners. So I think Demir Bay is a solid play, although his minutes have been a little shaky. But if he is in the starting lineup in an important game, you expect that he's going to go at least 75 or so. So I do like that. Okay, now we get into this range of teams that we don't know exactly what to expect, but there are a few plays on each. So for Byron, you do have Kimmich. I think it's just a question of whether he's going to start. If he is in the starting lineup, you expect him to, get a decent amount of minutes, 70 or so, and I think Kimmich could do plenty in that time. Although Wolfsburg, their opponent, does have something to play for, and they are a solid defense, so just keep that in mind with Byron. Let's go to Dortmund, though, for a second. It's hard to find these teams with 9 games. There they are. All right, so I think I actually like Haaland a little bit more than Lewandowski on the slate because of the price discount and because Lewandowski is a guy I could see pulled early because they don't want him hurt for the Champions League, whereas Haaland's season is going to be over after this game. So, I could see him playing the whole game and trying to bag a brace here. Sancho is questionable to play just because of his contract situation. And that's why I like Hazard so much at 6,800. I think he's underpriced there. You got the wingbacks, Hakimi and Guerrero. They're fine. Gio Reyna could start, but he's playing kind of in a more central, not as advanced role. Brandt, not bad at 5,400, but he's kind of like that boomer bust type play where he could get you 0 or get a goal and get you 16. The guy I'm probably most interested in from Dortmund is Morey, who started at wingback either last match or the match before, but only 4K. You're essentially getting a guy that plays in the role of Guerrero or Hakimi, and they're both 3K more. So if he starts, he's really interesting. Okay, let's go to Gladbach because they are a team that has something to play for. So Thurman's out, and Playa has been injured, so I don't think he's going to start either. So you have Stindl and Herman and Embolo, who will probably all be starters. I think Embolo is interesting just because he's the cheapest there, although Stindl just had a brace, I think, a game or two ago. The guy I'd be most interested in is Hoffman at 7,200. He's been starting in a wide position and taking most of the set pieces, so he's had a really nice floor, and he can also score, obviously. So I do like Hoffman in this game. And you have Ben Sabani, who loves to get forward in an attack, perfectly capable of scoring a goal. So all solid options there. Again, but my concern with Gladbach is that they could settle for a draw, so they don't need to attack a ton, and they're not a team that actually racks up a ton of peripheral points most of the time. And Hertha Berlin is not a bad team at all, so just something to keep in mind there, that there is some risk with Gladbach that they just kind of play for the draw here. All right. Köln's up here, but they've been absolutely terrible. And I'm more interested in Bremen, their opponent, because Bremen does need a win to avoid relegation. Osaka's been pretty impressive lately at forward. In the midfield, if Bittencourt starts, he's had some fitness issues, but 6,100, if he starts, I really like him as a play. He's underpriced there. And then either Friedel or Augustinsson will start at fullback. And regardless of which one of them starts, they'll probably take half of the set pieces or more in a split with Bittencourt. So I like either of them there, regardless of who it is that starts. Friedel's been a little more solid, but Augustinsson comes at the $700 discount there. Okay. I mean, those are like the top 9 or 10 teams. Let me just quickly see if there's any just players in general that I think are worth mentioning. So I mentioned Kostic. I mentioned Demirbe at midfield. Yes, there's one. So Cousins from Bayern, 3,700. Young player, but he's been getting some minutes. Yes, he's had a couple starts. So if he is in, he has been taking some set pieces. If he's in and Kimmich is out, he would become an amazing play. But regardless of whether Kimmich is in, I think he's really interesting at 3,700 if he does get a start here. And then a couple more plays. Well, one more play at defender. Even though it's a tough matchup for Brzezinski against Leverkusen, you're getting a guy there potentially, if he starts, taking all of the set pieces from Mainz. And they've actually been playing decent. So I kind of like him. Gunter for Freiburg, a set piece taking defender against Schalke, who's just been absolutely terrible since they've come back from the break. So a nice play there as well. Odriozola could start over Pavard. He is a defender that likes to cross the ball for Bayern, so I do like Odriozola. Also for Bayern, if Lucas Hernandez down here, 3,400, there's a chance that he gets a start at left back, possibly over Davies. So I do like him if he starts out wide there. All right, that pretty much does it for plays. The final thing I'll leave you with is, pre-lock hour is going to be nuts. So you got to be on top of lineups, see who's in, see who's out, what impact it has. And then knowing, what each of these teams is playing for is important. Just one word of caution, just because one team has something to play for and the other doesn't, that doesn't, automatically mean that the team that has something to play for is going to win. I think what it does do is it tells us what we can expect from game flow. So like, a team like Bremen or Leverkusen, we know they need to win. That doesn't mean they are going to win or even score, but it means that they are going to force the issue. The longer the game goes on without them scoring, the more they're going to, contribute more guys forward in attack and sending crosses, take shots from deep, just do anything they can to create opportunities to score. So just keep that in mind. Of course, the flip side of that coin is if they do get an early goal, well, then you can bet that they're going to sit on that lead and not do a whole lot. So that's the thing that can be crazy about slates like this is, the way teams play can change based on every goal that's scored. And then you have 9 games going on. So, anything can happen in GPP, I think. In cash games, the idea here is to, focus on guys that we know are going to get minutes, guys that we can sort of predict the game flow, at least from the outset. And a lot of those players will be from teams that have something to play for. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the content, please do hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you next time.